Good afternoon, distinguished guests, colleagues, and the dedicated men and women of the United States Coast Guard. As the Master Chief Petty Officer of the Coast Guard, it is my honor to be here in beautiful Charleston, South Carolina for the 2020 State of the Coast Guard Address. Welcome. Thousands of men and women are participating in today's address via live stream watch parties across the nation, like the crews at Sector Southeastern New England, Sector Anchorage, and Base Detachment Borinquen. Thank you to all who tuned in to the State of the Coast Guard Address. Throughout the past year, we worked hard to improve the quality of life for you and your families. From more capable assets to modernized personnel policies, we are dedicated to keeping the throttles down to ensure the readiness of our service. Today, we are here to talk about you, the incredible men and women of the United States Coast Guard, and the value each of you bring to our nation. Behind every coastie is a story, and our history is built on the stories of heroes, trailblazers, and icons. Coast Guard men and women who continue to write our history with the amazing things they do every day. Like Petty Officer Anton Jelsma, who responded to 3 people in the water in Saginaw Bay, Michigan. When his rescue boat lost steering, leaving the helm unresponsive, he didn't turn around or give up. Petty Officer Jelsma used the boat's dual-engine throttles to steer the vessel and to rescue 3 people and their dog. Or Petty Officer Chelsea Huff, who was on a counter-drug deployment aboard a Canadian naval vessel patrolling far off the coast of Central America. When a fellow Coast Guardsman suffered a life-threatening brain hemorrhage, she cared for her injured shipmate throughout a 13-hour medical evacuation that would take her through Mexico on 5 different vessels and aircraft. Doctors later determined the only reason the Coast Guardsman lived was due to the valiant efforts of Petty Officer Huff. Or like people like Vivian Gonzalez from Marine Safety Unit Port Arthur, who led a comprehensive waterway suitability assessment in Sabine Pass, Texas, which is enabling a $20 billion expansion of the port. These amazing stories, when put together, paint a vivid picture of the immense authority, responsibility, and value of our remarkable workforce. The answer to why we serve is as diverse as our organization, but we are all bound together by our core values and a common purpose of life, liberty, and justice. Ladies and gentlemen, please watch this video.
Not everyone knows about the Coast Guard.
And all we do for our nation.
Because of that, I get asked a lot of questions.
Why would you go onto a sinking ship engulfed in flames?
Why would you enlist in the military when you already have a degree and career?
Why would you risk your life to save someone you don't know?
How do you handle seeing so much devastation?
Aren't you scared to face down dangerous drug cartels?
How can you as a mama leave your children for such a long time?
Why do I serve?
The answer is simple.
I serve for life,
for liberty,
For justice.
I serve for them.
Rest easy, America.
We have the watch.
Wow. That is really awesome. I tell you, why I serve. If you have a chance, look up that hashtag, why I serve, and if you have something you want to add to that, please do. So ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, it is my honor to introduce the person who's going to tell our Coast Guard story, Admiral Karl Schultz, Commandant of the United States Coast Guard.
Wow. Good afternoon. It's great to be here in Charleston once again with our people. 230 years ago, the nation's first Secretary of the Treasury, Alexander Hamilton, recognized that America's prosperity depended on securing our ports, facilitating the flow of commerce, and establishing common rules for maritime trade. Hamilton insightfully created what would become the United States Coast Guard. For well over 2 centuries, we have protected, defended, saved, and shielded the American people. Today, I'm proud to stand before you as the Commandant of the world's best Coast Guard and tell the story of why we serve. To serve, that's our promise to the public. Over the past year, you saw us first on scene following the horrific destruction of Hurricane Dorian, the largest, most devastating storm to hit the Bahamas. Millions watched in awe as a Coast Guardsman fearlessly leapt onto a narco sub traversing the eastern Pacific Ocean. National Security Cutter Berthoff plied the Taiwan Straits to promote free and open access to the seas and adherence to the rules-based order. Coast Guard service members rescued 24 crew members from the overturned 600-foot Golden Ray, not far from here, including 4 confined for over 30 hours in 140-degree engine room spaces. But we did not become the world's best by resting on our laurels. From our humble beginnings with just 10 wooden brigantine sailing vessels through today, where our iconic racing stripe, branded on all our cutters and aircraft, is recognized as a symbol of responsible maritime governance. Your Coast Guard serves across the globe to advance American security and prosperity. We are an indispensable arm of the United States Armed Forces and a vital component of the Department of Homeland Security. As I reflect on the past year, I could not be prouder of the men and women who answer our nation's call to serve. Last March, I stood with our people in Los Angeles, and we charted the course for the future. Since then, we put the tools in the hands of our frontline operators, including the fast-track deployment of ScanEagle unmanned aircraft systems, and continue to achieve significant progress towards fielding our next generation of cutters. And we updated our personnel and assignment policies, including important changes to our weight and body composition program, addressing disparities across our uniformed workforce. We've seen overwhelming demand for our initiative to employ Coast Guard reservists to backfill primary caregivers on parental leave. We've also begun testing new electronic health records, and we've launched a modern credentialing system for our enlisted workforce. Our service has never been more relevant. Your Coast Guard's found at the intersection of great power competition and economic prosperity, fostering maritime stability and genuine human-to-human partnership. As a service, we are rightfully proud of our ability to lead in crisis, but our greatest value is in preventing crisis in the first place. There is no agency better suited than the United States Coast Guard to lead in the maritime domain and to uphold worldwide institutions that are founded on the principles of freedom, sovereign rights, and liberty. As we enter this new decade, the number 2020 itself connotates keen vision, and I see both challenges and opportunities confronting our service. It's an inflection point as I approach the midpoint of my tenure as Commandant. So today, I offer you a clear-eyed view of our path moving forward and the acknowledgement that we have much work to do to achieve our goals. In a constantly changing, evolving environment, we cannot remain the world's best Coast Guard. We cannot be always ready when America needs us unless we think and act differently, unless we continually hone our operational tradecraft, unless we continue to develop a positive culture that promotes respect, diversity, and inclusion through strong leadership at all levels of the organization, unless we develop our people and continually earn and maintain the public trust. Now, let's take a look at just how we serve. Just outside here, this building, 754, the National Security Cutter James. These cutters are the flagship of the Coast Guard's modernized fleet, with automated weapon systems, state-of-the-art command and control equipment, and advanced sensors. James recently returned from a 2-month deployment, where these modern systems and capabilities enabled them to stop dangerous drugs from being smuggled. That's 13,000 pounds of illicit narcotics. Since the implementation of our Western Hemisphere strategy 4 years ago, the men and women of the Coast Guard have interdicted 2 million, that's 2 million pounds of pure cocaine worth $26 billion. This vitally important work is the most effective way to help thwart cartels from trafficking their illicit products. Crews like those aboard Cutter James battle these dangerous cartels. During James's deployment, their armed helicopter crew shot out the engines of a low-profile vessel. That's a stealthy craft built for the sole purpose of smuggling drugs. In today's introductory video, you may have noticed Ensign Dorado. Ensign Dorado led a boarding team to apprehend the suspects. However, once on scene, they realized the low-profile vessel was sinking under them. They quickly removed the traffickers, slowed the flooding long enough to salvage the deadly narcotics, and preserve the critical evidence necessary for prosecution of the drug smugglers. In fact, Ensign Dorado is here with us today. Ensign Dorado, please stand. Outstanding work, shipmate. We're proud of you. Your leadership skills and talents exemplify those traits I look for in every Coast Guardsman. Drug cartels are actively harming Americans and our way of life. They traffic drugs, weapons, people. They cause instability and violence in Central America that drives migrants north. And their illicit commodities destined for the United States soil devastate American families. Recent years, we continue to set records for drug-related deaths every year on American streets. This is why we serve. Additionally, great power competitors like China and Russia are gaining influence right here in the Western Hemisphere by exploiting opportunities amidst the instability and weak governance that's fueled by those transnational criminal activities. Our efforts in the Western Hemisphere are critical, and we are using every tool in our kit to combat this scourge. Our network of embedded Coast Guardsmen in the region strengthen like-minded friends and allies. And for the first time in the history of the multi-decade maritime drug campaign, this past year our partner nations accounted for half of the transit zone drug interdictions. That success is noteworthy, but only a hint of what we hope for in the future. Upholding the rule of law and dismantling these insidious cartels furthers stability and enables our Western Hemisphere partners to protect their sovereign interests against global competitors. Our offshore patrol cutters, which will become the backbone of our modernized fleet, will have a critical role in this campaign. The first in its class, Cutter Argus, is already under construction and will be delivered in 2022. The offshore patrol cutter program is set to deliver 25 hulls, and that fleet will ultimately comprise almost 75% of our offshore presence. Our near-peer adversaries don't just stop at financial entrapment of vulnerable countries. They are actively exploiting other nations' natural resources, including fish stocks, in many cases challenging the sovereignty of smaller or less developed nations. China, with the world's largest distant water fishing fleet, is one of the worst predatory fishing offenders, engaging in what we call illegal, unreported, or unregulated fishing, or what's known as IUU. This is far more than just about conservation and sustainability. This is a national security challenge warranting a clear response. Fish is an essential protein source for over 40% of the global population, and fish stocks around the world are critical to many nations' sovereignty and economic security. Even by most conservative estimates, IUU fishing accounts for more than $23 billion of annual loss to the global economy. The United States Coast Guard can be a global leader combating IUU fisheries. And that's done by increasing partner nation capacity, international cooperation, and targeted operations. To frame our expanding efforts to counter this IUU fishing threat around the globe, we're developing a progressive IUU strategic outlook for the Coast Guard, and we plan to release that this summer. And to enhance maritime domain awareness across the Pacific, we are fostering a partnership with Global Fishing Watch, which uses cutting-edge machine learning and artificial intelligence to visualize, track, and share data about fishing activity in near real time. If successful, this initiative can be scaled to our fisheries enforcement efforts worldwide. Today, the United States Coast Guard holds 16 counter-IUU fishing bilaterals in the Pacific and Western Africa. And we're pursuing additional agreements to help us push back against these destructive fishing practices that are leaving vast expanses of the ocean and the seabed in ruins. A recent Stimson Center report indicates that to stop IUU fishing, we must increase accountability. We must help coastal nations improve their maritime domain awareness. Today, I call upon like-minded nations across the globe to join us in publicly denouncing countries and corporations that engage in IUU fishing and enhance enforcement activities that thwart this threat. Nowhere is this more important than the Indo-Pacific, where we serve to uphold America's enduring interests. This swath of ocean is the epicenter of global maritime trade and geostrategic influence. Many of these Pacific Island countries, even American island territories, lack the capability and the capacity to fully police their sovereign waters, leaving them vulnerable to a spectrum of illicit activities. We're most concerned by the coercive state's influence operations, intentions to construct dual-use infrastructure projects, and implied military threats to persuade other states to heed their strategic agendas. In the face of antagonistic behavior, your United States Coast Guard offers transparent engagement and partnership. We aspire to remain the preferred and enduring partner in the region, tailoring and synchronizing our services with other like-minded partners to meet but not overwhelm the absorptive capacity of the nations we support and serve. Later this year, we will continue Operation Iinga to strengthen the community of island nations in Oceania. By pairing an ocean-going Coast Guard buoy tender and fast response cutters, we will promote rules-based order. We will build capacity and affirm the United States' positive and enduring role in the Pacific region. And by the end of the year, we are on track to take delivery of the first two 154-foot fast response cutters to be home ported in Guam. These modern cutters will replace their 40-year-old predecessors, enhancing all aspects of Coast Guard surface capabilities in the region. That's including increased range, seakeeping, crew size, and enhanced cutter boats to support their operations. My commander's intent is simple: to employ our unique authorities and capabilities to complement, not duplicate, Department of Defense efforts. In 2019, last year, we deployed two national security cutters, Stratton and Berthoff, for 10 months of uninterrupted support to the Indo-Pacific Combatant Commander. National security cutters will again return to the Western Pacific this year for joint operations with the Navy's 7th Fleet, including participation in RIMPAC, the world's largest multinational naval exercise. The Coast Guard's also doubling down on that human-to-human interaction to bolster partner nation capacity building. Last August, one of our mobile training teams from Yorktown, Virginia, worked hand in hand with the Philippine Coast Guard to stand up their new outboard motor maintenance center of excellence. And last fall, I met with another key regional partner, Japan, who's providing the Philippine Coast Guard with two 94-meter response vessels in 2022. These endeavors provide the Philippines with the organic capability to build and sustain their enforcement fleet, enabling them to lead regional security efforts. And like the Philippines, countries around the world see why we serve and are modeling themselves after your United States Coast Guard. The alternative to coercive and predatory engagement is human-to-human interactions and robust partnerships. That's what we in the Coast Guard do best. Even our junior members provide an outsized impact to our globally strategic missions.
大家好，我是美国海岸警卫队的郑豪儿。My family and I moved to New York from China when I was a kid. I pursued a degree in fashion design. I worked in the industry for a couple of years before I decided I wanted to transition into something that would allow me to travel and experience new things in life. That's when I came upon the Coast Guard. I reported to Stratton on February 19th. And about 4 or 5 months into working dockside, we were thrown into this huge 6-month patrol going to the Southeast Asian seas. So on my first patrol, I was thrown into the role of interpreting for the U.S. Coast Guard. In the beginning, when they kind of slightly mentioned that we're getting into the territory where they might need me to interpret. I was like, yeah, okay, like, whatever. Like, they're probably not going to need me. I'm an E3. Like, why would they have me interpret, you know? I didn't really believe it until the very first pipe when they asked me to go to CIC, and I was freaking out. When I interpreted my first message and Captain was sitting right behind me, I was sweating bullets, but we were transmitting a message to the Chinese Coast Guard, and they replied back right away after I sent my message. And everybody around me was so surprised, and I was like, okay. And Captain was like, you don't understand, like, this is the first time that the Chinese Coast Guard has replied to us.
Fireman Zhang really helped us in two areas. One was how she interacted with China Coast Guard and China Navy ships as we were patrolling in close proximity with them while we were doing our UN sanctions enforcement. The other area where she also was invaluable and got to get off the radio and off the bridge of the ship was on the boarding teams and was able to interpret for us there while we conducted law enforcement, and we were able to communicate with them only because we had a Mandarin interpreter on board.
I'm proud to serve in the Coast Guard with such an amazing crew, and I am excited to see what the future brings.
So Fireman Zhang is watching today's live stream with her Coast Guard Cutter Stratton shipmates in Alameda, California. Let's recognize her incredible contributions with another round of applause, please. And good luck at Aviation Maintenance Technician School, Fireman Zhang. You are going to become an outstanding addition to our Coast Guard aviation community. Now imagine thousands of people like Fireman Zhang, each applying his or her own unique talents and contributions across Oceania, demonstrating the full proposition of the United States, the value proposition of the United States Coast Guard. That's why I've challenged my headquarters staff to work with our colleagues at the Department of State to explore leveraging similar funding models for Oceania that have enabled Coast Guard operations in the Caribbean and Central American corridors for the past 25 years. And Oceania is but one of several emerging geostrategic flashpoints. Now let me tell you how we serve American interests at the farthest ends of the earth. As our polar regions become more accessible, foreign competitors seek to encroach on American sovereignty, exploit our natural resources, and potentially limit access to shipping routes. The Coast Guard operates our nation's only icebreaker fleet, countering malign influence as our nation's most persistent surface military presence in the polar regions. We do this with only 2 cutters, 1 heavy and 1 medium icebreaker. This is a woefully unacceptable level of presence in an area where we must be a leading force. Presence absolutely equals influence, and we must up our game with respect to high latitude presence. I've just returned from Antarctica in recent weeks, where I met with the crew of the 44-year-old Coast Guard cutter Polar Star, and they're charged with ensuring access to our national interests in one of the most remote and unforgiving environments on the earth. You met Lieutenant Commander Kukowicz, Karen Kukowicz, the operations officer aboard the Polar Star, in the introductory video. Each year, Lieutenant Commander Kukowicz and the crew of Polar Star leave behind their families during the holiday season. And while underway for their annual Antarctic deployment, the crew not only faces the challenges of the harsh environment, but they must also rely on their own grit and ingenuity to keep their aging vessel engaged in the fight. And then, after their annual deployment to Antarctica, to remain ready for the coming year, they enter a 6-month dry dock maintenance period, far from their families in Seattle. The good news is that both the administration and Congress have duly recognized the burden our Polar Star sailors bear to meet the nation's call. That's why I'm truly grateful for their recent support to fully fund our new Polar Security Cutter, the first modern heavy icebreaker to be built in the United States in half a century. Additionally, the President has requested $555 million in the fiscal 21 budget before the Congress to fully fund our critically needed second Polar Security Cutter. And the good news is there's an acquisitions and funding strategy beyond that to build a third. And today we're developing operational requirements for medium icebreakers. A fleet of at least 3 of those polar security heavy breakers and 3 medium icebreakers will ensure American sovereignty and presence in the polar regions for decades to come. Cutter Healy, our 20-year-old medium icebreaker, annually deploys above the Arctic Circle. And when Healy sails this summer, it'll do so, yet again, without reliable communications for large portions of its multi-month patrol. These challenges are not limited to the Arctic Circle with respect to communications. Just last month, the harsh environment of northern Alaska once again degraded communications equipment. In bitter cold conditions, Petty Officers Rustmeyer, Ditko, and Chipperini from Electronic Systems Support Detachment Kodiak traveled on snow machines until the cold rendered those machines inoperable. They then continued their journey by pulling their heavily loaded sleds and dug by hand through several feet of snow in order to effect temporary repairs on site until weather improves later this summer. As Commandant, I need my operational commanders to be able to communicate with every Coast Guard asset, anytime, anywhere. We're exploring new satellite communications within the Department of Defense and partners there, as well as private industry, as well as renewing land-based communications in Alaska. And Arctic communications are truly a whole-of-government issue. We must work together to solve our communication blackout in the Arctic now. Tremendous challenges and opportunities remain in the polar regions, and robust partnerships are absolutely imperative to success. Through strategic forums, the Coast Guard's a leader, maintaining a safe and prosperous Arctic region where cooperation is paramount, and the 8 Arctic states rightfully set the terms of governance. And a strong U.S. Coast Guard will allow America to lead at these vital frontiers. Like the Pacific and the Arctic, Coast Guard men and women are also stationed elsewhere across the globe in defense of our nation. Today, as tensions in the Middle East remain heightened, the Coast Guard stands watch on the Arabian Gulf. 6 patrol boats and our advanced tactical interdiction teams defend against terrorists, rogue nation states, and smugglers who destabilize the region. And we are all in, with plans to begin replacing our aging patrol boats with fast response cutters next year. That'll expand our maritime capabilities in support of the United States Central Command. And not only are we on the operational front lines, our maritime engagement team trains U.S. Navy, allied navies, and Gulf Coalition countries, building partner capacity to further stabilize the Arabian Gulf. And right here in the homeland, your Coast Guard also enhances security. For the first time ever, we employed Department of Homeland Security recently congressionally authorized counter-drone authorities to protect 130 world leaders who gathered at the United Nations General Assembly in New York City this past fall. Likewise, under delegated Department of Defense authority, Coast Guard Reserve Petty Officers helped pioneer state-of-the-art drone defense equipment at our Maritime Force Protection units in Kings Bay, Georgia, and Bangor, Washington. These Coast Guardsmen provide counter-drone protection for U.S. Navy ballistic missile submarines. And while these aforementioned programs are funded by the Department of Defense, many of our defense contributions are not, leaving the Coast Guard on an unsustainable path to support our growing operational requirements. In contrast, the Department of Defense's readiness funding has grown nearly 3 times as much as the Coast Guard's over the past 5 years, despite our services having the same types of readiness challenges. That said, I'm grateful to the administration and Congress for the enacted 2020 budget and the President's 2021 budget requests, which starts us on a healthier funding trajectory. And the long-term solution is to recognize the Coast Guard's crucial role in maintaining our national security. I continue to advocate for a return to the security and non-security appropriations framework, which would help ensure the Coast Guard's funded in parity with the rest of the military services. A community like right here in Charleston understands just how important our defense contributions are to the nation. And for generations, the people of this great port city have also appreciated the importance of maritime commerce to our nation. Our interconnected global economy relies on efficient ports and waterways. Over 90% of the world's goods move by the sea. And we are clearly a maritime nation, and our marine transportation system generates over 30 million jobs and $5.4 trillion, that's trillion dollars annually in economic activity. Right here in South Carolina, your ports account for 10% of the jobs and gross domestic product for the entire state.
In Charleston, the Coast Guard's roles are vital to ensuring safety, security, and stewardship of the maritime domain. That's the port, that's along the coastline, that involves inspection regimes for both U.S. flagged and foreign ships calling on the Port of Charleston, ensuring their compliance with international regulations as well as U.S. regulations for operating in and out of the ports. Those regulations help to ensure the safety of the people aboard the ships, as well as the safety of the ports and their continued viability. We ensure the port remains viable, that what comes through the port is safe for the United States. And then from a stewardship standpoint, the Coast Guard heads up the Area Committee, which develops the Area Contingency Plan, and we exercise that on a regular basis to ensure we're ready to respond to any kind of a pollution event, any kind of an environmental impact to the low country, as well as an impact that might shut down the port. That's pretty much how we sum up our role here in Charleston. The Port of Charleston is important from both an economic as well as a military standpoint. We bring goods, raw goods, materials from around the world through the Port of Charleston to manufacturing bases around the region, not just in South Carolina. The investment in Charleston by the state and by the port is evidenced in their growth. I think that example is something that the Coast Guard is trying to do and sustain as well.
And South Carolina is not alone. The advantages of our nation's ports and waterways positively affect every American in every state. This is how we serve American prosperity. And today we face unparalleled growth in vessel traffic and complexity within this marine transportation system, from liquefied natural gas exports to offshore wind farms to increasingly sophisticated vessels. These factors and a host of others all contribute to an unprecedented demand for Coast Guard services. Additionally, we see an emerging vulnerability in the increasing cyber attacks that are targeting our seaports. Over the past year, our new cyber protection team has deployed to cities like New York and New Orleans to aid the intergovernmental response to malicious cyber attacks. This year, to better enable our operations, we intend to refresh our 5-year-old cyber strategy. And our people are working around the clock on waterways across our country to keep our maritime industry safe and efficient, ensuring American shelves remain stocked and our vast needs for energy remain met. However, this allure of high-paying jobs in the private sector makes it harder every day to fill our shortage of marine inspectors, qualified marine inspectors, who facilitate this flow of commerce and are typically found in our commissioned officer ranks. Thankfully, the talents of our highly skilled enlisted workforce are helping us fill this gap. This year, we're expanding the enlisted Marine Inspector program by 63 apprentice positions, and we're growing 17 additional inspector billets. And we're going to arm these inspectors with enhanced tools to increase their mobility and their effectiveness. We're testing Inspect, a tablet application that provides access to key Coast Guard databases available in the field. However, tools alone are not enough. Gaps in training funding in recent years have atrophied our skills in critical fields of expertise. Hence, we must create a regular training cycle for marine safety professionals to keep pace with this increasingly complex maritime industry. Pivoting to shore infrastructure. Every mission begins and ends at a Coast Guard facility. Unfortunately, due to years of flatline budgets forcing trade-offs, the facilities that our men and women deploy from and return to are crumbling around them. 40% of Coast Guard buildings are over 50 years old. Mold, leaky roofs, flooding, outdated building standards. These have all culminated in a $2 billion backlog of facility repairs. Every day we continue to operate with antiquated infrastructure, it gets harder to protect our modern maritime economy, harder to save those in peril, harder to attract talented men and women into our ranks, and ultimately harder to defend the nation. Take, for instance, Station Niagara. Last summer, the crew responded to record flooding on the Niagara River in Lake Ontario. For 4 months, floodwaters inundated the station grounds. The crew pumped out 200,000 of gallons of water daily just to keep their station operational. Despite such challenges, these dedicated coasties still rescued 45 people and protected our northern border. But you know what? It's a different story in places like Houston, where the city was devastated by Hurricane Harvey in 2017. There, our modern and resilient Coast Guard facilities, constructed with prior year's emergency disaster supplemental funding, withstood Harvey's direct hit, enabling Coast Guardsmen to save nearly 12,000 lives. This is the value proposition of fully addressing the Coast Guard's massive and untenable shore infrastructure backlog. And this is a nationwide challenge, including here in the Lowcountry. Charleston, similar to other ports in the country, is experiencing unprecedented change. By 2021, next year, Charleston will have the deepest harbor on the East Coast. Nationwide, the Coast Guard has an enduring responsibility to safeguard the marine transportation system and bolster maritime competitiveness, infrastructure improvement, economic prosperity, and national security. As a future Coast Guard operational center of gravity, nowhere do these responsibilities ring more true right here than in Charleston. Here we'll homeport the most capable surface assets in our fleet, including 5 national security cutters and a complement to yet-to-be-built offshore patrol cutters. Thank you, Mayor. Over the next 5 years, the Coast Guard will work to consolidate our campus along one waterfront. This gives Charleston the potential to grow into the largest concentration of assets and people in the United States Coast Guard. Today, we're executing $140 million in prior hurricane supplemental funding to start upgrading shoreside facilities. But this funding is only a down payment needed here in Charleston. We need an infusion of persistent investment in the Coast Guard. And right here in this great American community is a place to start. When dedicated coasties like Fireman Zhang and Lieutenant Commander Kukowitz return from months at sea, thousands of miles away from family, we owe them a place to call home. A home meeting fundamental needs like sturdy piers, affordable housing, and functional support facilities that ensures they and their shipmates are always ready. Charleston's a first stop to a nationwide investment in our service, our facilities, and our people. To serve the communities in which we live, we need early adopters like you here today to champion this vision. The Coast Guard of tomorrow must operate beyond brick and mortar. Rapid industry innovation, sophisticated adversaries are changing the very paradigm of maritime operations. In order to meet these challenges, the Coast Guard requires considerable advances to our 1990s era software, hardware, and analytics. Years of investment trade-offs have brought our information technology to the brink of catastrophic failure. Just this past summer, over 95 of our vital systems went offline for several days due to a single server malfunction, impacting our ability to save United States citizens, thwart criminals, defend our nation, and yes, even to simply check our email accounts. Our people will never fail our country, but our technology is failing our people. That's why in the Coast Guard, we need a tech revolution, a whole-of-service effort to empower our people with an information system that is reliable, mobile, and integrated. In a modern era where data generates more revenue than oil, it is crucial that Coast Guard modernizes its data management to help build and sustain its future force. Today, I'm proud to release our Tech Revolution Roadmap to secure the service's readiness and digital modernization. Yet another example of how we serve our Coast Guard people. This revolution starts now. In 2020, we'll increase the service's external internet speeds by 50 times and double major cutter connectivity with planned upgrades over the next 3 years. And we're placing all of our IT equipment on an industry standard replacement cycle, reducing the risk of critical failures and addressing the long-term problems of deferred maintenance. This spring, we'll also transition the service to Microsoft Office 365 in the cloud to increase email reliability during both day-to-day and crisis response efforts. Not only that, but AUX Data is on schedule to deploy this April, another cloud-based, user-friendly system to manage the outstanding work done by our highly capable 24,000-member volunteer auxiliary force. In fact, the AUX Data procurement team, who is watching today's live stream at headquarters, Ms. Brenda Oberholzer, Lieutenant Nicholas Fredrickson, Lieutenant Karl Stokes, and Ms. Chandra Kotzen, just earned the Homeland Security Today's Federal Acquisition Excellence Award for the innovative procurement techniques that will deliver this critical software in just over 4 months. While we developed this new roadmap to a more technologically advanced and effective Coast Guard, we need an injection of funding now. Closing our existing $300 million annual IT shortfall is an important step to modernize the Coast Guard's technology landscape. However, the Coast Guard's not waiting for tomorrow. We're placing our talented men and women at the key intersections of technology, mission, and innovation. Just last month, we cut the ribbon on the Blue Technology Center of Expertise in San Diego to better connect the Coast Guard with the tremendous government, academic, and industry innovation ecosystem. This center will create a unique pipeline for the rapid implementation of new maritime technologies into Coast Guard operations around the globe. And this summer, the Coast Guard will assign a contingent of our brightest minds to the Defense Innovation Unit in Silicon Valley to identify capabilities ready for accelerated deployment to solve a host of defense and homeland security problems. And in this cradle of innovation, last year I had the privilege to personally meet with CEO Tim Cook at Apple headquarters. While our industries are quite different, our purpose is similar. Do the best for our people, provide the highest level of service, and make a positive impact in the world. Much of this starts with technology. That is why I believe a wholesale investment will enable our talented people to carry out their missions across the maritime domain today and tomorrow. These dedicated men and women are why readiness remains my top priority for the Coast Guard. And a key component to readiness is building and sustaining a robust talent management enterprise, establishing the Coast Guard as an employer of choice. Talent management is both our most pressing challenge and our greatest opportunity. Attracting, incentivizing, retaining our best talent requires us to think about our Coast Guard families as well. For instance, Congress recently authorized the military to reimburse professional licensing costs for spouses. And the Coast Guard is leading the 6 armed services in the number of spouses reimbursed. But despite some successes, our workforce also faces some challenges, such as the lack of accessible and affordable child care across the nation. To help our people, we partnered with the Navy to change our child care subsidy program. Unfortunately, this transition created an enrollment backlog, slowing payments to our members. However, we've instituted multiple improvements, and the Navy recently added staff to address this backlog. As of today, we have more than 1,600 children enrolled. That's nearly 500 more than under the previous program. To lead in operations in an uncertain future requires us to harness the full potential of diverse backgrounds and original thinking. We must all build an inclusive culture that not only attracts the best of America's diverse population, but fosters an environment that encourages them to stay. A Coast Guard where every person understands that inclusion and diversity are mission imperatives, where every Coast Guardsman understands that these imperatives are only enhanced and strengthened through the foundations of strong leadership. Leaders are found at every level in our service. During Hurricane Dorian, you may have seen our air crews and cutter crews on the news, but you didn't see the hero in the hangar, a mission support expert who facilitated our whole of Coast Guard response in the wake of this most deadly storm.
Dorian, the most powerful storm to ever hit the Bahamas, crawled its way through the islands with wind speeds of 180 miles per hour.
No one, I think, anticipated that Dorian would be so ferocious and that it would last for so long.
The Coast Guard says it has completed more than 200 missions, and those people who were saved from some of those hard-hit areas were brought right here to this command post near the Nassau airport.
Our operations center here at the U.S. Embassy in Nassau became overwhelmed. SK2 Ford came to me and said, how can I help? And I needed her at the airport. I needed a Coast Guard liaison at the airport to be that conduit between the triage center and the Coast Guard helicopters that were landing on an hourly basis.
As soon as that first helicopter landed, it was that organized chaos, and the tempo just picked up immediately. We're staged at Odyssey, one of the local airports in Nassau, and we have a triage center, first response center, running through one of the hangars here. Primarily, my job is coordinating logistics and flights for personnel, supplies, medical supplies, food, to go down to Abaco and Freeport, and getting information such as personnel, injuries, if it's urgent, if it's emergency, what the medevac information is, and passing it on to triage to make sure that they're ready for all of the incoming injuries and personnel.
There's no way that we could have come in here and effectively dropped off people and been able to go back out and continue doing what our job is if she hadn't done what she did and gone well above what thought was capable to do. She directly affected many lives.
My definition of a hero would just be somebody that they would go out of their way to do everything that they can to save somebody's life. The crews, the pilots, the nurses, everybody played their part as a hero. I don't know. That's kind of my mom. Sorry, I'm thinking about my mom.
A hero to me is an ordinary person doing extraordinary things. And that's what Petty Officer Ford did.
Our efforts must be focused on recruiting and retaining truly inspirational and talented people like Petty Officer Ford. This begins with a better understanding of why our people serve. This past May, we launched a 2-year holistic underrepresented minority study with preliminary results due this June. This study will provide valuable insight into how we can strengthen our culture of respect, an issue so important that I've extended the initial 2-year charter for the Personal Readiness Task Force that was brought on board in 2018, so we can accelerate the pace of change informed by this study's initial findings. But this is only one part of a greater plan. Next month, we'll launch a 4-year diversity and inclusion action plan to provide leaders at every level with the skills to realize the full potential of our workforce. In the year to come, you'll also see the rollout of a Workforce 2030 action plan to better position our service to meet future personnel readiness needs and challenges. I'm committed to applying knowledge learned in order to solve our greatest personnel problems now. For instance, the 2019 Women's Retention Study identified that our workforce lacks a centralized and accessible communication platform to get the information to our employees. That's why we are launching My Coast Guard this June, a comprehensive mobile communications hub for our entire Coast Guard community. In responding to feedback from the field, we've improved the Coast Guard's Meritorious Advancement Program. Now, for the first time in our history, every district commander has the authority to select and meritoriously advance some of the most talented people amongst our ranks. This is one way we can honor an individual's embodiment of our core values. Similarly, we owe it to the cornerstone of what makes our service great, our people, to memorialize the extraordinary achievements of our past, present, and future workforces. and I look forward to showcasing the rich history and heroism of all Coast Guardsmen in the National Coast Guard Museum, scheduled to open in New London, Connecticut in 2024. Collectively, all of these talent management initiatives empower our people to pursue and achieve success in the process and optimize Coast Guard mission excellence. There is no better return on investment than the United States Coast Guard, and I am grateful for both the administration's and the Congress's support for our new assets, which provide unprecedented capability. Now, we need the matching resources to effectively operate and support the Coast Guard that the nation has built. These investments are essential mission enablers, ensuring our operational success today and revolutionizing the way we conduct operations in the future. Every day, I am inspired, I am impressed, and I am humbled by our Coasties, who put the needs of American public first. Men and women who lead during crisis, whether it's a hurricane response, massive flooding, or a capsized vessel.
As a rescue swimmer, you train like crazy because you need to be ready when you get the call.
I think we got 3 or 4 people severely injured. I don't know how they get on board. I think they're going to need a helo crew.
The moment that we got the call for the Golden Ray, I was actually on duty. We heard that 25 people were in the water, and that was pretty much the only information that we had. When you're getting your gear on and getting ready, the things that are going through your mind, you're just trying to play out every scenario you can based on the information that you have, just to try to prepare yourself for what you might come upon. Getting on scene, we saw the container ship pretty much flipped over on its side. The other helicopter told us that there were still people on the bridge wing. We talked as a crew and decided that they would put me down onto the ship. And I actually used the fire hose like a rope and pretty much rappelled down the fire hose into the bridge so that I could make contact with the captain and the harbor pilot.
He was able to sift through the chaos of the scene and prioritize and execute his mission.
I retrieved the fire hose and swung an end over to him. Because he was wearing a life jacket, I thought, okay, just slide down the hose to the very bottom, and then he could climb out through the opposite door down to the water where there were small boats waiting. And so that's what he ended up doing. I ended up tying loops in the hose about an arm's length apart on each one, from the point where the captain was up to my position, and told him to climb it. And once he was close to me, grabbed him and pulled him out.
If they were not there, then I may not be here to provide for my family and serve the state of Georgia. I'm just immensely grateful.
Certainly one of the standouts that night was AST2 Nate Newberg. He absolutely embodies the core values of the Coast Guard, and his character and performance were on display on that night. He certainly is a hero.
Petty Officer Newberg. Petty Officer Newberg truly is a hero. The next generation of Coast Guard men and women needs strong leaders coming up through the ranks, leaders who excel in the face of adversity, and leaders who embody our core values of honor, respect, and devotion to duty. Petty Officer Newberg here in the audience, and Petty Officer Ford, whom is watching in the Bahamas, please stand. In honor of our new Meritorious Advancement Program, I hereby advance Petty Officer Emily Ford and Petty Officer Nathan Newberg to first-class petty officers in the United States Coast Guard. Nathan, congratulations. Emily, if you're watching in the Bahamas, this shout-out's to you as well. We're truly proud of you guys. Congratulations. Our extraordinary men and women who truly live by these core values, they will never let you down. And our senior leadership will always have their backs, because on our watch, your Coast Guard must and will remain Semper Paratus, always ready. The American public expects no less. History and experience show us that our people enable the Coast Guard to adapt, to overcome. This was true for Hamilton's Revenue Cutter Service, and it is true today. To best serve the nation, we must invest in our service, and we must empower our people. We all serve for different reasons, but over my 36-plus-year career, I have found that we all share the same desire to take care of our shipmates, protect our families, and safeguard the American dream. Ensuring our outstanding Coast Guard men and women can achieve these goals and grow with both individuals and professionals, this is why I serve. Thank you for joining me today. May God bless the United States of America. Semper Paratus.